Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes out as from Petya. For special selection, very little covered style on your channel, but I think this one has enough stuff to analyze. Would love to see more melodic, chill electronic music on your channel. I'm always down for that. I can't always promise that I'm going to have the most insightful stuff to say about chill, relaxing electronic music, but it's something I'd like to have more experience with, more exposure to. So let's dive into this. We're going to look at the artist, Hinkstep, with the track Calling Out Your Name from the album Every Once in a While, I'd Sing a Song for You. That's just a beautiful title. Let's dive into this. This is gorgeous. We're only about a minute in and I'm already... It's the little things. This little like glass bell thing here is a really neat element to the timbre. It's like a clinkingness on top of a nice round tone, almost like glass bells being played alongside a marimba. It's gorgeous. I love it. Very warm, white noise-ish texture on the outside, giving us a chord progression. It's beautiful guitars. I keep wondering if this is going to turn into a dance track. Based on the description of it, I'm not thinking so. I'm just so used to electronic music having... I mean, we got this 4 on the floor beat too. Oh, and the, what is it? I don't know what the technical term for it is, but we have the synth ducking. The bass kick comes in and it drops down. So it feels like it's constantly rising up. That's interesting too. It felt like rising intensity to go somewhere and then it dissipates, almost quite literally, just kind of fizzling out to the sides and fading out. It's a very... Yeah, we had a LFO on that, right? I was gonna say the bass kick is sounding very flat here. I guess it was a snare, wasn't it? Yeah, it was starting to sound very flat. It was because it was getting tweaked over time. melody definitely takes its time. 4 notes. Tons of space. 1 more note. Tons of space. Oh, alright, we filled in a second melody here. And it's gone? There was something in the middle here that was filling in the space between all the guitar work. And it only happened for that one, 4-bar loop? It's a new effect on the guitars, right? Some sort of slight echo, maybe a delay of some sort? The left side's coming in a hair bit early. Well, I guess technically the right side's coming in slightly late. There's that counter melody. And once again, it's just like the 1 4-bar set. I would love to hear that continue on through and continue to be this sort of response to what the guitars are doing. Those strings have sort of been like stretched out and foggy. It's tough to kind of feel where the notes end, but it's a continuation from that same string line from the last section. The guitar lines put on some bells over here with some expanded work between in that space the guitars left. Ooh, that's a cool sound, this 8th note thing going on here. It's like hitting a PVC pipe. Oh, and this continues that 8th note feel. We have what sounds like a hi-hat adjacent timbre. Pretty much all this song has been working on quarter notes, emphasizing the beat, but this is emphasizing 2 hits per beat. First time, I think, on the track. It gives it more momentum. Alright, we're going to pull it back to the quarter notes with more energy, though. It's a way of, like, escalating the electricity of the section without actually getting into this more large sounds. That sound back there, it reminds me of Sandstorm for some reason. Ooh. Yeah. So there's a nice bit of syncopation in there that we really haven't heard too much of. Not with this type of electricity. Oh, I'm filling in the space with the bells over here. Dude, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I called that effect an LFO earlier, and I was gonna call it there again. I was like, I still don't know if that's accurate. I think it is though. We filter out the low end stuff, so we only get the trebly bits until it's just like the white noise at the top of the sound. Yeah, yeah. I could definitely have that on in the background when I'm working on stuff like reading comments or like making polls for the patrons. Anytime, oh, working in spreadsheets, man, this would be excellent for just typing up equations in spreadsheets and filling out databases. Yeah, yeah. Is the whole album like this? The album's 7 songs at 68 minutes. This is the final track on the album. Yeah, I agree. It was mentioned that they thought this song had enough stuff going on in it that it would warrant some analysis. I agree with that statement. There is a lot of stuff going on in here. It does do what chill atmospheric electronic music wants to do, which is just to sit in a spot for a little bit. It's not like it's constantly evolving in new ideas. It certainly finds its groove at times and just, well, it chills out. It relaxes. It says, this is a nice atmosphere. Let me explore it for a bit. But that isn't the only thing it does. And I love the evolution of sound. I think that's my favorite part about it is that when we move from one idea to the next, there's a fluidity of that. It isn't just a drop that takes us somewhere totally different so that we can have contrast between a low and a high moment. It isn't just a completely different change. Just cancel out everything that we're listening to and start back from the bottom and build up again. Everything in here makes sense. There are smooth transitions across like production parameters, talking about like volume and layering and stuff like this. But we also have transitions of compositional ideas too. We have ideas introduced that are going to lead us into a new idea. We have instruments that are left over from a previous idea, allowing us to rework other parts, basically removing some aspects to be filled in over time. Sort of like I was going to say like a ship of Theseus thing, but no, that's not what it is. Just like a piecemeal evolution. You remove this part and add that part, and remove this part and add that part. And after, a couple of new ideas are thrown in, you've done 5 or 6 replacements, you have a totally new concept that we're in here now, but it feels so connected to where we came from. That's how a lot of these transitions are built. Except instead of doing one piece at a time, you just kind of rip out a chunk and then fill that chunk in, and then rip out a different chunk and fill that in. And so the song evolves over time. Don't know why I got so southern there. And I love that. The progression of this song is something that kept me glued to it throughout. The dance beat, I move my body to that. I've said this before. I can't help but groove to good music. right? Honestly, I don't even think I have to put good in there. As long as there is a beat of some sort, I'm going to subconsciously pick it up and move to it. I'm not actively thinking like, oh, let me entertain these people and move a little bit while I'm thinking about this. I don't think I can literally sit here and just like stand still unless I'm just completely overwhelmed by what I'm listening to. And that certainly happened a few times. But once you bring in some groove, a good beat, something relaxing, I'm going to move to it. And I don't even know how I'm going to move to it. It really depends on what the music is. Sometimes you get like a pretty solid beat. Sometimes it's a bit more of like a smooth wobbliness. I mean, it really depends on the music. And I'm not thinking, oh, what would be the best way to move to this? No, it's what my body does. And this song demanded movement. And you know what? I gave it some. I enjoyed it. But there's another element to this that I think particularly stands out to me. And maybe this is just me being totally uninformed and wrong, and I just have a wrong bias about this. There's a lot of melody in here, and I like that. Now, granted, I don't think there's any strong melody. I don't think there's anything in here that gave me any sort of like narrative storytelling. We didn't have any overarching linear ideas. I'm trying to think. I don't think we had harmonic melody either. Every instrument that played something melodic was single. We didn't have any harmonies on them. We didn't have counterpoint. We had that one instance of counterpoint where this like glockenspiel style instrument came in the center to fill in the space of what the guitars were doing. But every time that happened, and it was only twice, it did it for 4 bars and then just stopped. I still don't understand that. That's going to continue to confuse me all day. But regardless, even if we don't have technical or intricate melodic devices, we still have melody in here and plenty of it. Maybe not hummable melody, but certainly something to follow along with against all of the ornamental and foundational ideas in the song. And ornamental, I'm going to toss textural things in there. I think there are a lot of texture based ideas in this track. I'm just going to put that in ornamental. It's ways to spruce up the song. The guitars or guitar sounding instrument are the ones that typically carry this, and they always take their time. I think this is pretty cool. It's I'm kind of two minds of it. I wish there was more to it. I wish that they had evolved into something else. But I like at least the concept of this. Play a few notes, allow some space. Play a couple more notes, allow some space. This is like this is jazz melody 101 right here. A lot of solos are built around the use of space. I think particularly because those are aerophones and the performers need to breathe in order to survive, to live life. And so you have sort of the concept of breaks between phrases just a part of the performance. There's just no way around it unless you're just a circulatory breathing pro. And I mean, even then, give your writing some breathing room. And that's what we get here. There is a ton of space in the melodies, regardless of what instrument is playing. Although, like I mentioned, the guitars do take the melody on a lot of this. You just get a couple notes and then a lot of space. And so you can feel the melody progressing over time, but it is chill. It's relaxed. I'll get to the rest of this story when I get there. I'm chilling out. And take some breaks, put some pauses in here, and it allows what I do say, what I do play, to have more import and weight. Like I had mentioned, I do wish we had filled in some of this space. It seems like an empty area. We did see another instrument fill it in, but not all of the time. Again, that was that bell thing that showed up for a whole 4 bars. I wish another instrument had taken that, or the guitars had filled it out more. We saw in the last minute of the song an adaptation of this guitar melody into something that more continuously moved. I would have liked something like that earlier, whether it is call and response or the guitars simply extrapolate on this minimalistic idea. Regardless, I think its intentions are met. It is a melodic element. It sits front and center, even though it's panned out to the side. It's front and center in the mix. You can't miss it. And it sits on top of the textures, the atmosphere, the chords that are going on, everything else that's supporting it. And it's relaxed. And I really think that's the main thing here. It's chill. It's taking its time. There is no rush to complete this melody. It achieves its goal. Speaking of feeling, relaxation, harmonically, this song, yeah, it definitely hits that vibe. I mean, you can write spacious music, but then if you inject tense music, tense chords underneath, it's going to subvert everything you've written in the rhythmic elements. This song absolutely feels relaxed. It feels chill. And somehow it does it with so many moving parts. Usually I would think, I mean, even when you write something that is totally interconnected, every piece is part of a larger whole, there's still an energy to that, an electricity, a momentum to all of that, regardless of tempo or chords, what kind of harmonic devices you're working with, your emotional writing. All of those layers are going to create a feeling of intensity. Somehow that doesn't happen here. There's so many parts to this, and it still feels laid back. I think that's twofold. One is just going to be the production of things. Many of these lines are way deprioritized. There was one instrument, I think it was an acoustic guitar-esque sound, at the beginning of the song that kicked the song off. It was like in the first 15 seconds or so. By minute one, it was so quiet, pushed way down under the mix. I really had to listen for it, and even then, I could really only hear one or two notes of the 6 or 7 that it played. This is a pretty standard technique once you start layering things up, is to pull things out of the spotlight to make room for other things. I've done this in my own music. If you go look at the track Getting Better, by the end of it, I start stacking up layers and layers of instruments. And one of the easiest ones to hear, I think, is I have a violin doing tremolo bowing, and it's very prominent in the mix when it first comes in, and then when the trumpet and the flute come in the back half of this section, it gets way deprioritized. I drop that volume about 60% down, just because it's more necessary as a texture at that point than anything else. This though, this level of deprioritization is massive. It you might as well just pull the instrument out at this point. I can't hear it and I'm looking for it. Your average listener is just, it's going to escape their focus entirely. But they left it in. And I think that's awesome. I don't exactly know why to leave it in if no one can hear it, but I do think it's an interesting thing to go about. It affects something in here. I'm sure at one point who is this? The alias of a Swedish audio engineer and musician, Jonas Tengenfeldt. Okay, so I'm gonna go with he. Yep, his music. All right, cool. I'm going to assume at some point in the process of this, maybe not necessarily this song, but some song in the past, he's reduced something down to nothing. Said, well, why do I even need it? Muted the track, and then was like, oh, it feels empty now. Turned it back on. Might have been this track, might have been another. Lesson learned though. Experience gained. Don't do that again. There's a reason behind it, is what I'm saying. And maybe the song just doesn't sound right without it. But I think it's very cool to see that kind of stuff on this track, because that's not the only time that it happens, and I'm sure there's plenty of ideas that I completely forgot about, that I didn't remember or couldn't remember to listen for. still there, but totally out of my focus. Might as well have been gone. But it affects the song somehow. Without it, I'm sure it didn't feel quite as right. I don't know how we got on this topic, because we were supposed to be talking about how everything feels light and happy and relaxed. Production, though. There's a lot in here. Oh, yeah, we were talking about layers and stuff. There's so many ideas going on. I get sidetracked sometimes. There's so many ideas going on that normally that would feel anxious. Part of it, I think, is the production, tweaking things. Some of it could just be EQ, doesn't have to necessarily be volume. I'm not really great at mixing or audio production, better than I was a year ago, but I still consider myself a novice. I have no idea all of the tricks and techniques that are used in something like this to ensure that it retains its light-hearted, relaxed, laying face up on the water with your eyes closed and just relaxing, just putting your arms out and floating on your back. That's what this song feels like to me. And I think a lot of it comes down to the production of it. But the other half, of course, it's going to be the writing. Everything in here is just gorgeous. Every single line that comes in, every harmony that's created, whether it is specifically a chord played by a single instrument or a couple of isolated ideas that happen to be playing simultaneously, creating dyads and triads. It's 2 or 3 note chords just from simply existing together. Everything in here feels great. It feels calm. It feels relaxed. It's a very gentle song harmonically. Of course, the use of space in the composition ties into this as well. There's a lot of places in here where there's just open air, particularly in the melodies. It's not that the song is completely silent in these moments. There's usually some sort of texture or atmospheric idea going on, something to fill the space so that nothing is completely devoid of sounds. But most people, I think, are going to listen to the beat and the lead melody and sort of absorb the atmosphere as a cohesive whole. And when you're mostly paying attention to that melody, it feels very spacious. It feels relaxed. It feels like it's taking its time. We've already talked about all of these qualities. I forgot about this other thing. It kind of ties into the production side of things, though. The timbre of instruments, the sounds, the tones of everything. I don't know what all these instruments are. I'm going to assume this entire thing is digital, but as far as I can hear, we have bass kicks, snares, hi-hats. That's kind of it. I don't think we heard anything that was tom adjacent. We definitely did not have any noisier cymbals. Nothing that felt like, well, we did have white noise at times, especially during rise ups and fade outs, that I think might be kind of close to like a crash cymbal. But honestly, we don't really have much of the noisier side of the drum kit in here. What we do have is even softened beyond that, and again, I don't even know if they are drum kit sounds to begin with. They just kind of fill those roles. There's a punchy lower end sound that gets used on beats one, usually a higher pitched, crackier sound. I don't know if that makes sense. A drum crack with some white noise around it feels like a snare. And then, like I had mentioned in the eighth note section, tss, 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 tss. Again, probably wasn't a hi-hat. Felt like it filled the hi-hat role, kind of fit in the same area as far as timbre goes. So we have that. We have acoustic guitars in here. We have a lot of bells, piano. I loved, oh man, the bell at the beginning just blew my mind. It captures a bright tinginess of like a metallic style bell, something like a glockenspiel, but it had something a little more to it. I called it glass bells. I kind of feel like that's accurate. Had a shimmery gemminess to it. But there's also a very warm, resonant undertone, like a wooden bell, something like a marimba. And for all I know, it was two totally different instruments that just had the exact same MIDI track in it. I don't know, but it's this combined sound of wooden resonance with like pointed metallicness. and it was gorgeous together. Absolutely beautiful. What I'm getting at here, though, is there really aren't any aggressive sounds in here on instrument choice. Everything is soft, it's round, um, it's quiet. There's nothing in here that really gets, I mean, volume is maxed out, right? We hit max volume all the time, but we don't have anything that feels loud. And I don't know how producers get around that either. That's something I need to learn one of these days, is illusion of volume changes without actually changing volume. We did have a lot of LFO stuff though, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Um, but it cuts out the low end. We lose the bassiness of stuff, and we use this often for transitions on this track as another great way to sort of feel like the volume shifts a little bit. Those sections did feel like they got quieter, but if I remember correctly, looking at the volume visualizer, we didn't have any volume changes. So, just on the production side of things and of course the composition side of things, everything is working together to create something that just feels relaxing and calm at every moment. Well, almost every moment. There is one section in here that kind of picked things up a little bit, and that was the eighth note section. I almost forgot about this entirely until I started talking about the hi-hat. This surprised me. We had like 6 minutes of music only concerned about quarter notes, emphasizing the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And out of nowhere, we get this 2 hits per beat instead of 1 hit per beat. And it makes it feel like it begins to drive. It has this momentum now. The volume wasn't quite as high, or at least the perception of the volume. We had less layers, but it felt like we had more momentum because of this. And it helped us build into the outro, which acted as both a peak of energy and volume, as well as, I think, one of the. It's a contradictory feeling. Calm, dancey bits. Does that make sense to anyone? It's high energy enough that I want to move and groove to it, but emotionally, it's so relaxing. Those seem like opposites to me. How can you want to move and relax at the same time? Laying down is relaxing, walking and dancing and jumping around is energy. You can't do those simultaneously. Somehow this song finds that midpoint though, and it's kind of impressive. I don't know that I could do that. Honestly, like I had never even thought about trying to make a dance song that was like low energy relaxing, but having heard this track, there was a part during the reaction I was just thinking to myself, I was like, could I even do this? Could I create this conundrum? Make something energetic enough to groove to, but calming enough to relax to. It seems impossible, and yet Hinkstep makes it look incredibly easy. The entire song's beautiful. And, honestly, the big thing here that I think is my big takeaway is the layering. I don't really have a lot to add to it, just beautiful layers all around, harmony, atmosphere, melody, but every moment of this song I was like, what's going to be added next? What's the next idea being brought in? How are we going to add on to this? How are we going to grow this? How are we going to subtract it to fill in to make room for other things to fill in? It feels a lot like my writing, but less orchestral and more electronic. Kind of makes me want to get into the electronic side. I never really thought of my style of writing fitting electronic music very well, but I mean, this is definitely something to aim for. And Hinkstep is putting a target up for me to hit. And they're like, dude, you can do this. I'm like, oh, I can do this. Let me follow in some footsteps here. I've already tried to incorporate electronic music in my work, and it never ends up like this, I'll tell you that. So, yeah, I'm going to have to listen to more of it. If nothing else, just for research purposes. Try to absorb as much as I can and learn from it so I can incorporate it in mine. No lyrics on this one, so we're going to wrap it up. Those are my thoughts on Calling Out Your Name by Hinkstep. What do you think of this? Anything that stood out to you, anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on. Maybe you have your own thoughts, opinions, and perspective about this. Put all that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.